Hello and welcome to the Sheep Seats. I'm your host Matthew, aka Sheep, aka Dark Sheep, and tonight I'm joined by a new face in the crowd, someone we haven't had on before, Billy Jones. Welcome. You are muted, my friend.
Not anymore. Well, yeah, it's excited to be here. As you said, my name is Billy Jones, and ready to draft, chill, just hang out, talk some data, and underdog.
Yes. Yeah. So we are actually both in the draft right now. We are waiting for 6 people. So if you're watching, come help us fill it out. I'm going to drop in the chat a link to your blog. And while we wait for 5 people now, why don't you give us the brief rundown of who you are and what you're all about?
Yeah. So, as you said, my name is Billy Jones. I'm a CPA and data scientist at BDO. It's a large accounting firm, and for my day job, I do data analytics and work on accounting. But I love sports, love fantasy sports. And so for fun through my Twitter, I write analytical content and post visuals that I find are meaningful. Um, Underdog has so much volume of data that it's the perfect medium, and played baseball growing up. So I'm really excited. Was really excited to dive into the Dinger data from prior years.
Yeah, so far, our friend of the show, Chris Baseball, has been kind of leading the charge on the data analysis side of the baseball dinger data that we've had the last couple of years. So it was very exciting to me to I think you just tagged us all, everybody you could, into a couple of blog posts, and I was like, oh hey, somebody else is doing something for this. That's awesome. Like, one of my goals always is to I'm never saying I have all the answers or that I'm even like the best drafter or anything like that. I just want to start and open the conversation about this game that I love. So super excited to have you here and have you like digging in. So what kind of stuff have you hit on so far in the stuff that you've written up?
Yeah, so like the first post that I did was very macro level, positional contribution and how does different structures perform, and such. And so the first one, you can see that first graph right there is the positional contribution. But let's blow right by that and go to the structural advance rates, which I found very interesting because you had those balanced builds do much better, but the edge that was gained on those balanced builds was nominal over what would be the standard advance rate of like a 16.6. Whereas when you zoomed in on the first 5 rounds, the leaning in on the zero pitching build really was quite dominant. And I'm really curious on like trying to understand that a bit more and what that means for this year and so on. So I thought that was a really cool takeaway from the first kind of study that I did.
Yeah, so this section right here, the 0-2-3 and the 0-3-2 starts. So the pitcher, infield, outfield, as we commonly refer to the order of the positions. Yeah, you have this bigger 23-24, which is quite not nominally over the 18% that, or 12, I forget the number off the top of my head. So yeah, that is really interesting. I know anecdotally we do need one more person. I've seen a lot of people talk about how they felt pitching performed this year and how it didn't, or previous year, and how it didn't perform. And I haven't really seen a breakdown of if it was the pitchers specifically that we were taking, and I don't really know how to go through that without really like trying to fit the data to stories that we're telling about those pitchers too.
Mm-hmm.
But it is pretty clear that fading pitcher for the first 5 rounds last year was pretty good.
Yeah, and the part that I'm intrigued about is So last year, it looks like the ADP market got more and more expensive for pitching as it went throughout the draft season. And this data would say that was wrong. Early investment in pitching, reaching for pitching was not the play. And will that happen? Will people react this year and say, okay, last year was correct. We should not overinvest, and we should let it wait and just take every faller as it kind of happens and take the values. I don't know. Does it feel like that the bullpen is doing that? It feels like the bullpen pitching is slightly creeping up a little bit. Which I'm annoyed about, honestly, because I was hoping to get some good values, but we'll see.
Yeah, and I don't remember exactly. My gut is that it wasn't until like the dinger. Looks like we started our draft. The dinger really was popping off till it really started pushing up. I know you get the second pick.
12.
Oh, great. That's where I've been living these days. We got Billy Joe and Billy Jones. Yeah, sorry. That was Billy Joe here is in the audience. He's made the dinger final last 2 years, and I don't know what I'm doing. So, but I have my rankings in here at the moment, but there is this glut of pitchers that I feel like hasn't moved up, and even Strider now. I feel like at some point he had like a 10 ADP, and he's falling back a little bit. So it is super interesting to know, is the player base that let's open the screen. The player base that was drafting right now and previous to now, were they bit by the pitcher problem last year? And that, like you said, are they correcting for it too much? And then will we get a more public audience as spring training comes in and stuff, and they start, Garrett Cole, I know him, Spencer Strider, he's the best pitcher of all time, or whatever, So it is interesting.
We've already seen it happen. When some football money came available, the draft started to get a little bit crazier. Right now, I would say the 1, 10, 11, 12 becomes like a little scary when you get it, because you're like, am I going to get a guy there still? But now I'm kind of a little less concerned about that. I'm almost more like it's kind of optimal because I could possibly get 2 of them if it goes my way. So I'm up right now. I think we're going to take Julio here. I'm pretty big on him.
Yeah.
He finished the season incredibly strong last year, and I don't really care so much about stacking, and that team doesn't really need to be stacked. So it doesn't matter to me. So, and additionally, so one last thing is I'm entirely fading Tatis on this tournament, and I will come back to him next time, just because I think it gives me potentially some interesting leverage, because I'm thinking of them as split portfolios. But that's only one thing I wanted to touch on.
Oh, okay. That was sort of in line with what my question was going to be, is are you this middle part of this first round can kind of go any number of ways. Are you just trying to distribute your ownership amongst these outfielders evenly, or if you had some specific targets? But it sounds like you have a specific fade for this tournament.
And I'm doing it. I'm going to be heavy on Julio this tournament and Corbin Carroll right in that window. And I think I want to kind of flip that for the next one. I feel like Tatis has more of that. They're all incredible upside, but I'm like the 101 upside, I feel like is there with him, but I also feel like he could easily just show that he's like a 22. Right? He doesn't belong in the first round. So no.
All right. We got fun pick 12. I think we're going to get a little bit weird here. We're going to do a Matt Olson scroll down to Austin Riley combo here. I have not done this. So it was basically push Kyle Schwarber up or take a couple of infielders that I have a lot of. So we're going to do a little bit different on this draft.
I think that makes a ton of sense. Neither of them are going to regress this year. I'd be shocked. Maybe Olsen, he was so good last year, but that offense is so awesome. And Riley could take an uptick. I don't know. I grew up in Atlanta, so I love watching them emerge over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and he's really stepped it up compared to who he was originally when he first came into the league. So yeah. So are you? If you grew up there, you're an Atlanta fan, obviously, still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I live in Boston now, and being an Atlanta Falcons fan, living in Boston during the 28-3 whole debacle and stuff like that was fun. But now I have a pretty good team in the Atlanta Braves, so I am up. I just don't love Trey Turner in that spot. I feel like, I don't know, Corey Seager was great last year. Maybe we can get him with Simeon on the way back. I don't know. I've really been doing this the outfield infield combos and kind of balancing my first 2 round exposures and like combinatorial exposures with that.
Yeah, I do love the Corey Seager Simeon combo. I'm not super big on stacking this year so far. Just I don't know if it's because I'm so worried about my outfielders getting them in the middle of the draft that I'm not looking at the stacks as much as I would normally be, or I haven't really fully figured out why it is. But I do love that little pair, and then I like throwing Young on there later.
Yeah, and like I would never go out of my way to make one of those stacks happen. Maybe when you're going at a massive amount of volume, I could see the rationale. I'm not going to max these. I'm going to try to get some volume in there. I was probably going to put 40 entries into the dinger and then 50 into the 40 into the bullpen and 50 into the dinger, and get some round numbers to work with.
Yeah, I definitely put too many into this contest last year. I don't know if I'm saying that because my results were bad on this contest last year, but I did feel like by the time I had reached the end of the drafts that I wish I would have balanced a little more towards the dinger. Obviously, the bigger prize, so it's a little more fun to chase. But I did draft a lot of this contest earlier last year, right when it opened, because I was trying to take advantage of ADPs, and I feel like that didn't help me. So I didn't quite go as heavy when this one opened. All right, so you're coming up here. Based on your data, you're looking at another outfielder, infielder here.
And I wanted Yelich. I just hate getting behind at outfield, but I love Pete Alonso. I find that in a contest like this where he can just hit 4 home runs in a week and be insane, that profile, I don't know. He was great last year, and he's less expensive, it looks like. I don't understand it.
He slid down a little bit. I think he's a victim of the general Mets sentiment from last year.
But I don't know. I mean, that's a team level. I feel like he's still fantastic.
Yeah.
But now I'm here sitting with 2 infielders, and I got to stop. And access to a big faller or some value that I love feels like it'll be some sort of like structural reach. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Smith Hole here does not care about outfielders.
And you are in an interesting position because if you don't get Reynolds, it gets the ADP is kind of out of whack, but you don't necessarily care because you have him below.
Yeah, I do. I don't know. I don't see him any better than those guys.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I do have this big glut of pitchers up top. You know what? Let's do it. Let's do my favorite pair. Zach Wheeler, Luis Castillo. I mean, you don't pair them very often, but they're up there at the top of that group for me.
Yeah, and I think this is where format of Underdog versus like name and like other formats becomes almost impossible to pass on that list of 7 pitchers that are all just aces.
Yeah.
Versus looking at guys that are really, really good, but not the same level ace.
Yeah. Very interesting that I feel like Webb is on the outside of that, but I'm ending up a lot of Logan Webb because I have him at the end of that tier and he's always there longer. We got Numi trolling us here. Any news on when the digger is coming?
Oh no, Numi. How about you tell us?
Well, welcome. I don't know. Where are we at tonight? I think you were saying 68 or 66.5%.
Almost 2/3.
It's popped off the last week. Like you said, there was a few days of some crazy drafts going on. I feel like it's smoothed out a little bit more the last few days.
Okay, so talking about Reynolds, I will take him here.
Yeah.
And that is ADP value plus I just kind of need it structurally. I'm comfortable with that. A lot more comfortable as my number 2 rather than my number 1 because of the lack of upside.
Yep. Totally. I have no problem if you want to take Brian Reynolds. Like he is he's similar to Christian Yelich in that he's going to bat towards the top of an order and he's going to accumulate. Neither of those guys are like super upside plays. You're taking him there just to fill that outfield position each week, hopefully.
Yeah, and this is where it's like every one of these infielders is going to have more production, and you're going to look at the 109 hole, and they've walked themselves into a situation where every one of those guys would produce more, but they're kind of chasing at this point.
Yeah, so Smithhole did take another infielder, like you said, and so like this is I don't think it had a high advance rate, but this is a stop at 5 infield here. Like you can't devote that much early draft capital to infield and then keep taking them.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they are, I haven't looked. They wouldn't be auto drafting if they took Freddie at 9. So that can't be the case. Not a huge fan of Adolis Garcia at this price, but this is a really interesting start by Infinite here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not. I don't see it going down. It's not going to get cheaper.
No.
And I don't want to move them to the other side of the board on the front, like so 15, 16, 17 picks. So there's going to be a lot of chalky Adolis teams.
Jason is taunting us here. Welcome to the show. Welcome everybody watching. We got a good crew here tonight. Everybody's excited for baseball. There's some random trades popping off today.
Not overly meaningful for this tournament.
No. No, I did. I do have one Robbie Ray share. So if you didn't know, the Mariners traded Robbie Ray, who's coming back from Tommy John surgery sometime after the All-Star break. And they traded him to San Francisco for Mitch Haniger and Anthony Descalfani. So, like you said, not overly meaningful. The note I saw from Seattle was Descalfani is going to be a starter / bullpen guy. So that's good news if you're a Wu or a Miller fan at the back of their rotation. Although it does kind of give them a guy, if one of them's struggling, to push up into that rotation if they need it. But it certainly could have gone a different way where they said, oh, yeah, he's number 4 and those other 2 guys are competing for 5 or whatever. So that's good news if you like those young guys at the end of the draft. And Robbie Ray, I took him, but I didn't realize he was out that long. So that was one of my. Sometimes you're just scrolling around on round 20. You're like, ooh, that guy. And then you go look, and you're like,
I like that name.
I had a lot of Robbie Ray last year. I'm a fan of him for this format.
So this is an interesting, I guess, use case for the punt outfield, the first 4 rounds, and kind of see what's available.
Yeah, so I am scrolling down here. These guys have all sort of settled here. All right, so I think I'm going to keep up the stacking theme and take this little Chicago pair. I'm not going to get Suzuki to come back to me. And that's going to, I know we're on stream, but I'm going to set myself up. If just queue up Dansby Swanson if it makes sense. It might not when we get around to him. I might not want to go to infield there, but just so I don't forget.
Pretty sure you started off the stream. You're like, I'm not huge on stacking.
Take outfield first. I'm not huge on stacking. Oh, here's a late outfield build without. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes you got to build different. This team 45 or whatever for me, so got to do a little bit different. I don't know what Seattle's doing. It's just like, I don't know, because Haniger cannot stay healthy. Like, that's a fact at this point. It's not even he's injury prone. His body doesn't hold up. And the ideal situation for him would be to not play much outfield, but going to Seattle, he's going to have to play a bunch of outfield, which is also why the Giants were able to get rid of him, because they have a bunch of outfielders that they can mix and match. You are on the clock.
And I was going to go Jazz. And I was going to say, when you picked it, I was very interested to see if you had brought him up, because the upside with a player of his profile that can run, very interesting. But he's like another one of those players that can't stay healthy. Do have Freddie Peralta queued up. I love someone. I don't know. I feel like he's got a profile that could compete with the top guys on any individual game basis. And this is right in the range where I transition to building around pitching and not having a nice solid amount of innings.
Yeah, I think this is his year. We saw the second half improvements. We saw him stay healthy, and obviously he's got to do it again this year. But if he does stay healthy this year, I think he can be in the Cy Young conversation.
And there is no bias with your sweatshirt.
No. I have not drafted much Freddie Peralta in my history of this contest or other contests. All right, we got a big one here. If you guys have a second, some thoughts. What's appealing about slow drafts over fast drafts? I've never done a slow and wonder if I'm missing on edge. Slow drafts just sound so terrible to me. So I just personally always have like a couple of slows going at once just to have them going. I'm not like a huge slow drafter. I do some because the thing you always I tell myself, it's like, oh, I should do slow drafts because I can stop and think about my pick a lot more. But really, it's more likely that I'm going to forget what I was building when I get to my pick sometime or more often than I actually sit down and take time. So for me, it's just I don't feel much edge, so I tend towards the fast. Have you done any slows?
Yeah, I do a bit of both. I find that there is someone will inexplicably fall in a fast draft because you get a fair amount of people panicking. That was never one of their targets anyways, and just keeps ticking down the draft board. Which you don't really see in a slow because people will see something happen. Oh, that's a great value, and just go take it right away. But I do like the idea of if you want to get a little more volume, or when I first entered this tournament, I went a couple slow drafts so that I knew who would be roughly in various different places. I could think through it the first time, rather than having to try live and being like, I don't know who's in the 17th, 18th, 19th round that I like. And then having to do that and thinking through it in 30 seconds, I feel like I was going to miss. I am up. I'm taking Luzardo.
Yes.
It's
all right.
it's kind of the double pitcher, but a cheaper version, I think.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you looked at my rankings, I had both those guys up there at the top. Like I have a small tier down to that next group of pitchers, including Grayson. This group here, but I do have a lot of Grayson.
He stands out in the was it a Stuff Plus metric, and Bobby Miller stands out. There's a couple players that really kind of pop that I'm interested in getting a lot of this year.
Yeah, and Grayson is a little bit better projecting than Bobby Miller in terms of looking at what Steamer has right now. But yeah, they both have opportunity, and they both got a good amount of innings last year. That the knock on young pitchers often is that you're worried about the innings.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's look here. This is tough, but we are going to take the two free agents. I know there's a lot of people not in on Soler this year. We saw a pretty good season out of him last year. We saw a downswing on Teoscar's season, but they still both have massive power if they're going to play, and if they get the right landing spot, I'm fine taking them. I've seen both linked to Boston recently. You're now that you're in Boston, I don't know how much you follow the local news and notes, but I've seen them both linked to Boston recently. And
we'll go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and Teoscar, I saw a little note about a potential Dodgers thing, which would be pretty nice too. So, but they could also, either of them could end up on Miami or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel that their value will actually change, up or down, with a significant landing spot?
I do. Obviously, the dumb answer is if one of them ends up at Colorado, they could shoot up. I don't think that's going to happen. But those other landing spots, like Boston, would fit for both of those guys really well. And I don't know where else. I don't know how much room they have to move up is the only thing. I feel like they're being drafted probably around where they're at. Again, a lot of people are out on Soler based on his health history.
Mm-hmm. But you needed the outfield. You needed the upside, and
yeah,
you got it that way. So I went with Marte.
Yep.
I do feel like I've got a lot of infield at this point, knowing that there's a lot of substance infield later in the draft. But this is where it's like I don't want to draft any of these outfielders right now. Like, they don't feel good, like good clicks. I haven't gotten any low this year. I just don't feel. I don't know. Doesn't. I don't know. Doesn't. Not exciting to me. I don't know why. Yeah, maybe sell me this wise.
So one of the other interesting news notes that not a huge application to this format, but the Seattle traded Jose Caballero to the Rays for Luke Raley. And Raley did play a lot of outfield in Tampa. So I don't know how much playing time that opens up for Lowe, but it is one less body there that did get outfield time last year. So that could be a good sign. But also, I don't know that either of those, either side of that trade really makes me want to take either of those guys. Caballero is interesting. I was looking. He's got some power and more speed, but he's really a verse lefty sort of guy, which is a great fit for how Tampa plays, but not a super great fit for this contest. But interesting to see how they mix and match now.
Yeah, for sure. I am up next. We may take Lowe if he's sitting there for us. We'll see what happens in this next pick or so. If not, there is definitely a pitcher that is very interesting to me.
Okay.
Right here that I've been taking a lot of. Guess I'll just go ahead and take him. Now we're going to take Cole Reagan. I do feel like this trio of pitchers has about as much upside as any trio without having to spend like absurd capital. I watched a Tread Athletics YouTube video and kind of got obsessed with Reagan's a little bit, but the profile is very interesting. A very hard-throwing lefty that seemed to get a new gear and become a different pitcher.
Yeah. I am out on him. Probably I can see it really backfiring on me. Yeah, I've read some stuff on him about it wasn't just like the weighted balls and everything. They did a bunch of things because he had 2 Tommy Johns already. He'd spent a bunch of his career in rehab, and like his body was not set up for pitching anymore because he had done so much flat ground throwing that they really revamped his routine and stretching and all that. So it's probably a mistake. I'm going to take Dansby on the fall here. I have nothing wrong with that. Let's look at outfielders. We've officially hit the outfield cliff, in my opinion. So I know I've got them ranked further down, but I have been wanting to increase my Christian Javier exposure, just based mostly on what he did in September and October last year. and like how much everybody was so excited about him last year. We shot him up the draft board. Like last year was going to be his breakout. So it's sort of a like post hype pick here behind two pitchers that I feel really confident about. I don't feel like I'm trying to get innings out of like a Sonny Gray or Merrill Kelly right now.
Yeah, I like that. If you weren't on the turn and had to throw him 24 picks around, I would have seen, like, I personally, he's the type of guy that if you're out of turn and you can push him 6 picks, I try to do that because he's got kind of like a negative stigma around him. He was so disappointing last year. I don't think you were going to be able to pull that off at 132. But
yeah, our buddy here, Silly Rabbit Trickery. Roggins was the third best UD scoring on a per start basis in 23. So I don't know. I'm sure I'm wrong about him. I don't feel confident fading him, but the profile of the guy who is injured a lot and then gets a bunch of velo really scares me. I don't know who I'm comparing it to, because I feel like there's already a body problem, and now you're increasing the stress on the body. But obviously, I read that article about him, and it's really got me scared because how much they went and changed his routine and his body. So yeah, that's just where I'm at. I don't feel confident. I'm not going to tell anybody else to do it, but just he is not on my list, especially with like Eflin and Bradish here, or even Joe. Well, that's a bad example because of Joe Musgrove's shoulder, but those two guys specifically, and like some of these other pitchers up here that I like, I'm just not getting to them. So I'm probably wrong.
We will find out. I took Stanton there. I was looking at three outfielders and needing to kind of fill that. And I got Julio, so he has to be good in this format this year, or this team's toast. Brian Reynolds, compiler. Nick Castellanos, kind of a compiler with some pop to him. I was looking for, a really upside. It doesn't need to play every week, but when he does hit the lineup, he's going to be meaningful. I was like, okay, Stanton's got that kind of profile. So that's kind of was what I was thinking.
Yeah, I don't think that really changes the fact that he did have some amazing starts, and like also the stuff that he did with pitch mix and picking up new pitches and stuff like that did make him very good. And yeah, he did have a down period after the initial hype. Yes, I don't know if it's a small sample size trap because so much changed about him. But yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things I'm going to stammer on about.
It's an interesting debate at 102, right? Like we're talking round 9, 10. That's you're going to have to take a player where has the profile to be a huge hit, but also could miss. And if he misses from round 9, I don't feel like this team is toast.
Sure.
And that's why I'm like, okay, that's a very interesting profile. Feels like Rodon, Hunter Green, Bradish, Reagan, all kind of fit that same mold.
Yeah. I think even a Mitch Keller as the guy who was the Cole Reagans of last year, that we saw something exciting from Mitch Keller at the end of 22, and then some off-season hype around Keller made some believers, and then we saw some good and some bad from Keller. So interesting. I don't know if he's an exact comparison, but very similar in hype cycle.
So I'm going to take a player who.
Okay, that's good.
Players are good. I'm curious, where do you want him to go?
Not New York. I'm fine taking Jordan Montgomery no matter where he goes. I mean, obviously, I don't want him to go to Colorado. I don't want him to go to Cincinnati. I think both, maybe Colorado, but Cincinnati has said they're done adding. So I'm not too worried about that. Yeah, I don't care where he goes. I'll take him wherever.
Okay, yeah, I'm curious. This is the. It feels like free agency's been slow. I don't know why. Maybe because
Yeah.
there's the two big crescendos that went to both to Los Angeles, and I'm like, blah about it. Like, come on, that always happens.
Hey, I have a hard time because I love all the guys or most of the guys in that are on the Dodgers just separately. So it's hard for me to get angry that they're compiling guys that I like to watch all in one team. All right, I'm gonna add Chas McCormick here. I just like him. I don't want to take him much more expensive than this, but I think his playing time comes up this year with Dusty out, and he's shown enough that I like taking him.
Chris Bryant, he's there.
He might be there again. Maybe not. We'll see. I do have my Reese pick here, but I think I want to add a pitcher. Now I am going to add a super boring guy that I just end up with a lot of in this position or in this part of the draft. Obviously Max Scherzer is out for a while. He's still slowly falling. People keep clicking him. The ADP is holding on him. There is Yu Darvish here, and I will admit I don't have a good read on any of the Cleveland pitchers. I don't know if you've dove into that at all.
Yeah, I don't have a lean right now. One of the things that I want to look into is the Stuff Plus metric is very interesting to me. As someone who's very interested in data and data science, it's a metric that we can like get into understanding how pitches are interacting more than just like the results. So definitely going to take a look at that. I am curious. Someone like Scherzer, I don't want him. I'm not going to take him in the next pick. But in this format where you don't need him to play, and then when he does pitch, he is awesome. I guess what level of contribution do we need?
I do not think he's going to be awesome. That's
okay.
I think he's done. I think I don't think he's going to be awesome enough. He just had too many problems that I don't feel like he can really survive much longer. But
then in your rankings, how is he still up there?
Oh, so we have reached the end of my rankings. Rhys Hoskins is the last guy I have in the top 106 that I have ranked. So I do not know yet. I have not gotten that far. Let's hit some questions here. We did talk about this, Brad, if you had been listening. Thanks, though.
So go back 15 minutes.
Yeah. The quick answer, I think Haniger, if you're going to risk the health, I think he should just play every day in Seattle. Rayleigh, they have too many DH first base types. I don't really know what to do there. And then Siri with Rayleigh gone, and maybe that is correct. That Siri is the guy we should be thinking about now with more playing time. I don't know. I don't love his profile in any way, so it's hard to really get excited about it. But a late round, adding him as your 6th seventh outfielder if you're doing that. Certainly couldn't. There's certainly worse names you could pick for scoring. San Francisco outfield, I don't really want any part of. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting caught in the platoon bias, thinking through who they have left, because we can't pick their Korean guy, who I'm blanking on his name right now. Apologies to him, but he should play every day. And then we have Conforto and Yastrzemski. Austin Slater's still there, I guess. So Ramos, Matos. Yeah, the way they operate, I don't want to jump on too many. Maybe a Conforto or a Yastrzemski now. I don't know. If you have any.
And we expect those foreign players to be in the next tournament, right?
Yes, they should be.
And how will ADP work with that? Will it just be first draft and then kind of falls from there?
I would guess that it just starts from this.
No, I mean, so these players that are new, Jackson Holiday would be in there and stuff like that. Will they just be listed at the bottom until someone selects them and then it becomes live?
Here it is. Sorry, Jung-Hoo Lee. I have a feeling that someone who visited the set or visited the show, knew me, will probably try to give those players some sort of ADP that makes sense. I don't think they'll start.
Scherzer.
Exactly.
There we go.
Oh. Welcome to your first stream draft.
It's okay. No worries. I have plenty of pitching on this staff that I feel like I could be okay. We'll have to build a 7-pitcher team, and that's fine by me.
Hey, we got one of the best screen names in Underdog here visiting us, Ben Roethlisberger. He's almost maxed the bullpen in slow drafts. Good news for you is that we're getting closer and closer to the bullpen or the dinger as this contest has increased in fill rates. But yeah, that fall on Max Scherzer, it is what it is. Like, you have enough to support him if he does come back and he shows something.
And that's where my question was kind of geared at earlier. So as my pitcher 5, how much contribution do I really need out of him for it to be not a dead pick?
Yeah. I don't know the answer. That's a great question. I just think that there's other guys that can contribute similar, because I am just generally down on what he has left, even when he comes back from injury. All right. We are currently sitting 4-3-5. Just kind of scrolling down here, reminding me of some names. All right, we're gonna. I don't love it. Don't love this pick at all. But we're gonna take the outfielder in Jarren Duran. We're getting him. I guess we're jumping up on ADP. I just don't want to think about outfielder right now. And we're gonna get a really basic infielder to fit here, Andres Jimenez. I've just taken a lot of him as a 4th or 5th infielder. He's sort of just who he is. He steals power. He's going to hit in that order in a decent position, and I think he's just a compiler. Interesting last year to this year sort of thing. Will Smith, I just took a ton of last year still, and sort of bit me in the butt, but just it feels weird missing on him this year, because nothing has changed about his playing time or how good of a hitter he is. So it might just be a bias, a hangover bias from last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So I'm up next. I am not going to miss this pick.
All right. So while
you go ahead.
Yeah, Dylan here. While you take your pick, Francisco Alvarez, you like a lot next year as a last round pick. Yep, 25 home runs, 382 at bats, 21 years old. Yeah, and maybe this is a combination with the Will Smith thing, is that I'm being a lot more picky on my catchers for their playing time this year than I was in previous years. But as a last round pick, I don't think you can really go wrong with Francisco Alvarez. But I'm just avoiding catchers more in general.
Which makes Adley Rutschman an interesting pick at his spot. He doesn't get the catcher treatment. He is that premium, kind of play every day, even when he doesn't catch. But it's, I don't know, at the price, it's very expensive for someone who will sit sometimes.
Sure. So you did take Eovaldi there. Is that is that a want to pick, or just take him because it makes sense?
I don't mind him. I feel like, again, back of the rotation, get a lot of innings. The format is around innings and strikeouts, and can you get a quality start? And it's not like it doesn't feel awesome. Like he's not a sexy pick, but he's going to get innings and volume. And when a team that's going to have a Scherzer on it, a dead roster spot, I'm going to look for a little more volume from these last two, him and then my last pitcher.
Yeah, makes sense. It's pretty funny how awesome Eovaldi was, and he hasn't got the playoff bump in this contest at all.
He's always awesome in the playoffs. I feel like I remember him with the Red Sox turn to a bullpen arm and just was like absolutely electric. He very much burned in my mind.
Yeah, he won them that series by going in the extra innings and pitching like a full game and saving the rest of their bullpen. And then he was hurt.
Yeah, yeah, that's shocker.
And yeah, I do take him sometimes. I was watching, playing daily drafts and playing DFS last year. I was keeping an eye on his starts, on where his velo was at after coming back from injury, and it did start building up a little bit from when he did miss time last year. So I don't know what to expect out of him this year, but definitely like where he's going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just took Melendez. This is the range of the draft where I am looking for volume. And the steamer projection, I know at volume projections are sometimes not always the best, but he's got something like 630 plate appearances or something projected. So it was a pretty high number from where this is at. So I'm like, there's a couple guys in this range, which north of 600 at bats or plate appearances. And I'm just like, click, click, click to fill out my roster.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I was taking him at the start of this contest. I've sort of backed off the more I looked at how he actually did last year. But he's always had kind of a profile that has an upside. But he was just kind of really bad last year. So I am a bit afraid. All right. So as I said, I don't stack very much, but we're going to take a Cleveland stack here with Josh Naylor.
Don't stack very much. I got two minis, full on Chicago.
3. Yeah. maybe
So
a
Larry's going to
Boston.
sign on Chicago and do that for you.
There you go. And here, someone that sort of I've thought about a little bit more is Braxton Garrett. I did have an initial pushback against him just because last year he was like really overperforming his peripherals, and he sort of came out of nowhere. But if you look at the actual like I know Miami is known for their pitching, but if you look at it and there's rumors around them trading Luzardo, like if they do that, he has a chance to really Braxton Garrett has a chance to like be needed to pitch a bunch. So yeah, it's a volume thing there, and he did get better last year than previously. So I'm just comfortable taking him at this price, whereas like I'm not comfortable taking Alek Manoah here.
Yeah, it's like a player who we don't know if he's going to be in the major leagues to start the season versus a player who's projected. We could very easily see a path to 150, 160, 170 innings, if not more. So, yeah.
Yeah, he got 160 last year. So yeah. And like if you look at him and compare him to like a Yusei Kikuchi at 211, like I don't think of them that much differently, but I also don't think you're giving up a lot taking one of those guys at 172 compared to taking Kikuchi at 211. That you're not giving up that much in the other players, even though I would rather take the guy later in general that I think is similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, completely agree. So I just took Geloff, and this is my looking at volume, top of the lineup kind of profiles. And I don't know if there's many players on Oakland I'm targeting this year, but in this range, I feel like he's going to be batting at the top of the lineup and be hopefully productive, and just kind of build my infield through volume that way.
Yeah, reducing juice took Reed Detmers, who's the other guy I like to take in that group. Just volume, strikeouts are there when he's got a good start, like that. Yeah, the thing that scares me with Oakland is that they kind of showed us last year. Yeah, Geloff is another stud. They also showed us last year that even if they had some guys that were better, they weren't even going to necessarily play them.
Like yeah, they don't want to be there.
They weren't necessarily putting out the best lineup every day. They were trying out some weird guys just to try them out. So that's my biggest fear taking anybody on Oakland is that either they're not going to stay and they're going to go be I don't know what team Zach Geloff gets traded to that gets a bunch of playing time. But yeah, I'm mostly avoiding Oakland, taking some Geloff, taking some Rooker back here, just because he's an outfielder.
Mm-hmm. I'm up next, and I do have a couple targets, but something I'd like to get your thoughts on is Junior Caminero in round 16 now. Is that your Stacking Dinger co-host's fault for this? What is going on there? Because he was an undrafted player 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think we can blame him. I think we can blame a lot of the general roto population that it has infiltrated us more this year in the contest. They're pretty high on him, and they tend to be a little bit more prospect forward than even myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is interesting. Well, let's see. We're on the clock. Let's see.
How many drafts have I done? I have completed 21 so far, and I have 3 active flows. I want to land at 40 for this tournament.
All right, I'm going to take Nolan Gorman just as an infield target for spike weeks. Looking at pitcher here, let's see. I'm going to take one of these boring guys. Let's take, I guess it's less boring. Let's take a Pepio here. I'm really comfortable mixing in this group, just mixing and matching at the end of drafts. I don't have a super big pull to anyone. Well, I mean, I've been touting Seth Lugo, but I do have a lot of him, so I don't want every draft with Seth Lugo. Wyatt Langford isn't available in this contest, and he probably won't be in the Dinger. I don't think he's gonna get added to the 40-man. I don't between now and then. So I don't know that we have to worry too much. Yeah, and reducing juice here. He's quite high on Caminero too.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there is a few people that are just specifically pushing him. So you did take Seth Lugo there. I'm proud of you. There's nothing more boring or unexciting to do.
Needed to wrap up a roster, a pitching staff that had enough volume that I could just completely ignore a draft pick. Scherzer.
I think Brad, I think you're forgetting about a certain shortstop that will not be playing for Tampa. Caballero is going to probably be a platoon with Walls, is what I was reading at shortstop. And he can also play second if like Lowe gets injured, which he's known to do. So I think that it was all things considered, it was a pretty smart minor move. Surprise! Tampa's making a pretty smart move to get a depth infielder for a depth outfielder. So definitely, I don't think it crowds the playing time any more than was already there. No, Junior is third base.
So we are starting off round 19 now.
Right.
My question to you is, are we running this back, or are we just trying to plan?
Oh, what's that?
Are we going to like do another one, or should we?
No, we're going to call it after this one.
Okay.
I'm sure reducing juice is going to correct me. On the on I think Caminero is a third baseman. That kind of pushes Isaac Paredes out. I don't know. That's a good question. Because right now on roster resources, I'm just looking. They do not have Caminero on the big league club, so I can't even get an idea.
And the assumption is that he fills a slot vacated by Wander Franco, but if right?
Yeah. No. The question was where Caminero plays. So, and I'm not super up on all the young guys, as probably can tell by my general outlook. DH is open. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right now they have Richie Palacios in at DH. So, yeah. It should not complicate things in that infield.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Where are we sitting? Where am I sitting? 666. I feel pretty good about all of my groups here. This probably is a 7 outfielder build, despite knowing that the outfield doesn't really fill the flex too often. Oh, yeah. And let's see. So let's see. Well, let's do it. Let's get one of my first shares of Michael Conforto with a little more playing time open in San Francisco. Although I'm more concerned about who he is actually as a hitter anymore than his playing time. And then let's not stack some more and put him with Thairo Estrada.
I've been selecting a lot of Estrada in the late rounds. Again, a volume player who hasn't really even seen a full full volume of season and had putting up decent numbers already in my mind. But I think that there is a potential upside from that type of player.
Yeah, and he was a great scorer last year, and he was a last round pick last year. I'm kind of surprised that he isn't getting a little more steam based on how he did. He did have a period where he was injured, but it didn't. So maybe his overall total points last year is less than people remember.
Mm-hmm. So I'm up next with my last pick.
Yeah, and you got a 7.66.
7.66. So I'm done at pitching. I do feel like my infield is very good. It has plenty of substance right now, and I would want to kind of top off the outfield. Guy I've been going a lot with lately, Parker Meadows, someone who's not really on the ADP landscape. He's right at the end, but someone who's projected to play outfield, center field, pretty much every day, lead off against righties. The knock is he can't really hit, which is a problem in this format because there is no defensive stat. But if he can get a little bit better and get that volume, very interesting player for me.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Nobody really going super off the board in this last round. I know if I'm drafting on my own, sometimes I'll just throw a random. Oh, we do get a Matt Wallner. So now that Caminero can't be gotten in the last round, reducing juice is going to work in a little Matt Wallner. I like it. All right. So yeah, I feel like we both built pretty balanced teams that we like. You got your introduction to stream drafting and missing your first pick while talking, so that's out of the way for the next one. But yeah, I'm gonna drop again the link to your blog in the chat. So if people do want to follow you, what's your handle and all that stuff?
Yeah, so my Twitter, I'm not like super locked into the name actually. So it's SportsBizBJ. I'm not really, I might change that at some point. But if anyone has any ideas or questions or thoughts around just analytics or just the game in general, that's what drives much of what I write. You drop in the Discord, curious on where ADP is now and it was going from last year. And I want to write a piece on that because it's going to give me some context on maybe what will happen this year. So if anyone has any thoughts or ideas, or maybe research questions, definitely DM me on Twitter and we'll go from there.
Awesome. Well, really appreciate you jumping on and really excited to see what you work on and happy that more people are getting to break down some of this large amount of day that we have. So thanks everybody for drafting with us tonight and joining us on the Sheep Seats. As always, it was a great time talking baseball and drafting a team. We'll be back next week, I think. And everybody have an awesome weekend.